All right, let's dive into three things that are completely reshaping the business world: energy, ESG, and the new board agenda. Now, I know what you might be thinking, more corporate buzzwords, but this is something else entirely. What we're really looking at is one of the most complex, high-stakes juggling acts that big companies have ever had to perform. It's a fundamental shift in how business is even done.
So what's really driving all this change? Is it just a sudden desire to go green and save the planet? Well, not quite. The real reason, as Peadar Duffy puts it so bluntly, is that the people who control the money, we're talking global capital markets, the massive pension funds, are, in his words, petrified. They're staring into a future that's packed with uncertainty, and the old maps that used to navigate risk just don't work anymore.
And that fear, the one rattling the financial markets, it flows right downhill and lands squarely on the boardroom table. This is the board's new reality. We're way past this being a side conversation or something you just hand off to the PR department. It is now a central, urgent item on the agenda that demands their absolute full attention.
And this is where we have to reframe the entire conversation. This isn't about corporate charity or just, feeling good. This is a cold, hard, pragmatic response to a world filled with massive business risks, from geopolitical chaos to extreme weather to huge social pressures. At its core, this is about resilience. It's about survival.
Okay, so if survival is the name of the game, what does that actually feel like for the people in the boardroom? Well, Professor Mervyn King gives us this fantastic metaphor that just perfectly captures the insane complexity they're facing. It's a global juggling act.
I mean, this quote just nails it, right? Boards aren't just steering a big ship in calm waters anymore. No way! They are now professional jugglers desperately trying to keep all these different, and often conflicting, demands in the air at the same time. You make one move over here, and it creates these crazy ripple effects everywhere else. It is, like he says, a truly massive intellectual exercise.
So what are these balls they're juggling? Well, for starters, there's the absolutely staggering cost of financing the energy transition. Then you've got geopolitical chaos, wars, tariffs, you name it. On top of that, you have this huge economic divide between the developed and developing world, the global north and south, where everyone has totally different ideas about who should pay for what. And while all that is happening, you've got intense pressure from society and regulators. Plus, you have to deal with critical local issues like unemployment. It's a lot.
And just to make that financing ball feel a little more real, get a load of this number. The estimated price tag for just one country, South Africa, to transition its energy system is $300 billion. That's billion with a B. That's an almost impossible number to wrap your head around. So now imagine you're an investor trying to price that kind of risk into your models. You can see why the markets are so spooked.
And that, right there, is the heart of it. That's why the markets are so petrified. This whole juggling act, the wars, the societal shifts, those $300 billion price tags, none of it fits neatly into the old spreadsheets. The entire system is just completely overwhelmed by a level of interconnected complexity it has never seen before.
So here's the crucial mind shift we all need to make. The common assumption is that ESG is a kind of soft topic. It's about being nice to the planet, it's about social good, but the market reality is something totally different. ESG is simply a framework, a set of data points that investors are desperately grabbing onto to try and make sense of this wild new world of risk.
And let's get super clear on the terms here because people mix them up all the time. ESG is not the goal. Think of ESG as the data. It's a system for classifying all those messy, complicated inputs. Sustainability, on the other hand, that's the desired outcome. That's about whether a company can actually survive and keep creating value in this new reality.
Right. So if the world is this complex and all the old tools are broken, how on earth does a company even begin to plan for the future? Well, this brings us to a really interesting paradox. The old way of doing strategy is dead, but strategy itself has never, ever been more important.
So why is the old way broken? It's simple, really. Those traditional, rigid 5-year plans, the ones that get locked into strategy retreat and then put on a shelf, they're just dangerously fragile now. In a world that changes this fast, a static plan is basically a historical document the moment it's printed. We absolutely need a new model. So what does this new model look like? Well, Peadar Duffy points to this amazing analogy from the military, from General Stanley McChrystal's book, Team of Teams. The U.S. military, a huge top-down hierarchy, was getting beaten by a much more agile enemy. So what did they do? They completely changed how they operated.
They broke down the silos between different units, they pushed decision-making power down to the people on the ground who had the best info, and they created this constant feedback loop of sensing the environment, learning from it, and adapting on the fly. That's the mindset shift that today's companies need to make.
So, let's bring this all back. How does all this theory, the market fear, the juggling, the need for agile strategy, how does that actually translate to the day-to-day reality of a board director?
Board director Karina Litvack just cuts right through all the noise. She says, look, regardless of what the politicians are arguing about, some things just aren't up for debate. As she puts it, physics is physics. The planet is warming. Weather patterns are getting more extreme. These are physical realities that a business has to deal with, period. Whether it's a factory getting flooded or a supply chain falling apart. The train has already left the station.
And this gets to the critical difference between just following the rules and a board's true purpose. Compliance? That's just meeting the legal minimum. It's the floor. But a board's real job, its duty of care, is so much bigger than that. It's about being the ultimate guardian of the company's long-term health, making the tough calls that ensure it can actually survive and thrive. That goes way beyond just ticking some boxes on a regulatory form.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. When you really look at the way most big companies are structured, hierarchical, rigid, stuck in their silos, and you compare that to the kind of agile, adaptive, constantly learning organization this new world demands, you really have to ask yourself, are today's companies actually built for this? Are they built to survive? That's the billion or maybe even trillion-dollar question that every single board on the planet is wrestling with right now.